Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. And on today's episode, the empathy trap, where we are pulling back the curtain on what actually happens in the minds of leaders every day. Today, we're jumping into a topic that is quietly destroying great leaders: empathy burnout.
That's right, Kristin. It's emotional exhaustion that happens when you become an unofficial therapist for your workplace. And I've certainly had this happen. I know that leaders have. And Kristin, I find it very interesting that I was kind of thinking about going to a conference. It had been a while. And it looked like half the topics that were being discussed in multiple conferences was empathy. So it's almost like we've gotten fixated on the word, but leaders who are actually living it, they know that it's misplaced and overused. So anyway.
Yeah, I'd say so. And that's why this was trending as in the top two leadership topics this month. So December 2025. This was a hot button, so I wanted to dive into it. And that makes sense, Ron. People are probably going to book a conference, and that's all they see. And they're like, I'm so sick of this.
Yeah, but I think employees love it. They're like, oh, this is going to make my supervisor more understanding. And I just think if you have a culture where you literally, and I know people are going to think we're simplifying it, but when you have to tell leaders, be nice, say thank you, use your manners. There's deeper problems in that organization than just putting empathy presentations throughout your conference. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I know. And we're going to dive into it today, and not only from a leadership standpoint, but from someone who even has a coworker who likes to dump their emotions on them or drama. And, we see this in everyday life. Some of us have friends that like to dump this on us, and we're expected to be empathetic. So we're going to dive into what is empathy and just everything involved. And, leaders everywhere are probably nodding after what you just said, Ron, because they know exactly what it feels like. You're just sitting there minding your own business, and suddenly someone walks up and downloads their entire emotional hard drive on you. I've absolutely experienced this when I was in my leadership role. I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, and Kristin, it's very important for people to know, especially if someone's been through tragedy and you say, I feel empathy toward you, or whatever way you use it. I think it's very important that we define empathy and sympathy, because they're used interchangeably and they don't mean the same. So let's do that real quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you are using the word empathy, you're feeling with another person. But sympathy is I'm feeling for another person. So I'm sharing this pain like I've been through it. I understand everything you're feeling. But sympathy is like, I feel bad for you. But you're not saying I understand exactly what it feels like. Now, in empathy, you share in their feelings and emotional experience. If someone loses, let's say someone lost a mother, and you've lost a mother, that's a perfect time for empathy. You both have lost the same thing. But if you have not suffered that loss and you say, oh, I feel so empathetic toward you, well, that might offend someone. And in the coaching space, I'm coaching an attorney who has suffered a loss. And Kristin, if you remember, I had a post on LinkedIn that said, I'm sick of empathy. And it got some attention. And she appreciated that because she had a very difficult loss in her personal life. And she understood, all of a sudden, she understood the gravity of that word. And you don't understand what I'm going through. So we are just saying, we don't, I explained it. I didn't hate the word empathy. I just think it's misused. Yeah. And so as I'm coaching this attorney, we come up with a better word. And this is a side note, if you're listening, is understanding, or I want to understand what you're going through, or I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you. So sometimes if we're not sure about what word to use, you could just say, I understand you're hurting and I'm here for you. I can't imagine what you're going through.
That's what I do, Ron. I can't even imagine, right? Because I'm saying I have not I have not been in that scenario, right? I'm not trying to. What about the one-upper, though? Because sometimes we see people who, let's say somebody lost a distant cousin, and then in your scenario, someone's lost their mother, right? And someone goes, oh, yeah, my mom's cousin's brother, they died a few years ago, and that was really hard. And it's like, how tone deaf can you be? But I hear this type of thing all the time.
Kristin, that's the perfect example. It's not, tit for tat here. It's not. But there's one other thing, and I mean, this so frustrates me. When someone is in agony, tragedy, those kind of things, you have to let them lead. Don't force. We get uncomfortable with silence, but we also try to either match or talk too much, and sometimes all you need to do is be there. I tell people that. You don't need to be highly trained. You show up, and we've talked about it before. I want to throw in one word I used one other time on this podcast, Kristin. Now, I'm talking about people who unload. They do that emotional dump all the time, and they gossip or whatever they do. I use this word in training, and it's mystique. And I was coaching someone yesterday, and I said, tell me someone, and everyone's got someone, and I'm going to ask you the same question, so be thinking about it. What leader were you around? What person were you around that they carried a mystique about them? You wanted to be like them. You knew a lot about them, but there was still this question mark. How do they carry themselves so well? How do they seem to have the answer? And if you can develop mystique, you can conquer the world.
Right.
I mean, it's powerful.
Yeah.
You got anyone in your mind?
Besides
me.
I exactly. Ron
I was
spits
taking a
his
drink.
water
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
No, when I worked in New York City, Jason was my leader, and he definitely had that mystique. He did not give. I didn't even know he was engaged for a long time. I don't know. He probably was. Maybe some people would say too private, but it definitely left you wondering. He was a great leader. He worked side by side with his team, but he didn't talk a lot about his personal life. So there was absolutely that element of mystique. And what that does for you is it keeps you a little bit unsure. It's like you don't know them 100%. So you don't always know exactly where you stand, but at the same time, highly respected. So yeah, it's an interesting concept, I think.
It really is. And everyone has someone that carries that mystique. And the interesting thing is, a lot of times you're watching them even walk down the hallway or watching their interactions, and you don't even realize, or they don't realize that you're watching them. But that's what mystique does. It draws you. You can't look away. You're analyzing how did they get so cool,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And we've talked in prior episodes where I did not maintain a high level of mystique. I'll just be completely honest. I'm an open book, right? And that can bite you at some point when you have to maintain yourself as a leader. And I think it's great to be open and build that like family-like environment. But at the same time, to your point, and Ron, I've learned a lot in the 2 years of us podcasting together. You don't want to be an oversharer. And I'm completely hand up admitting I at one point in my leadership career did overshare, right? Like just we all got along really well, and then you just feel comfortable talking about a lot of things, and you lose your mystique when you do that. And what's the risk of losing a mystique as a leader, Ron?
Well, it literally is about respect. Mystique and respect go hand in hand. People lose respect for you. And Kristin, I was not perfect in that. I remember things changed for me when I went through a divorce, and all of a sudden you are single, and it's just a whole different world. People don't understand. It was like I got dropped in Mars after that. And then you're lonely. You've lost the friends you had as couples are usually not your friends anymore. Like that was the most challenging. I think if I keep writing books, I would like to write one the day after divorce or the dirty side of divorce. But it really was. And I do think I opened up a little too much during that time. And but Kristin, I want to give you a compliment. I was following you before we actually met. I was stalking you, and
Nice. We had a sidebar conversation about the Stalker show before we recorded.
I'm sorry about that, but and we do have Stalker story. Maybe one day, Kristin, who knows? We seem to vomit everything, so maybe we'll do that. But you had a mystique. You really did, and that's why I was hesitant, because you had a pretty big show. I was hesitant. I've recently retired from the government. I've got a best-selling book, but, I had no idea whether you would be interested in partnering, because I'm very hesitant about partnering with someone, as you know, in business. But we all learn, but that's what this podcast is for. If you are a new manager or you're wanting to get promoted, start thinking about, I want to build mystique. And it's not an act. It just means sometimes you need to stay quiet. You don't have to share every thought that comes to your mind. And don't get too personal. The workplace is not the gossip column. And we forget that.
No, I think that's great feedback.
Anyway.
Great feedback. I wanted to share something. My mom, as I was researching for this episode, it flashed back that my mom had told me something about my grandma. And she used to dump on my mom, right? Probably her other daughters as well, her dramas with my late grandpa, right? So they would be fighting, and she'd call my mom and just dump all of this, horrible fighting that they had going between the two of them. And my grandma would walk away feeling lighter. And my mom would feel like this psychological punching bag. And she used to be so mad, because then the next time she would talk to my grandma, it was like nothing had ever happened. Oh, everything, because it passed. Right. And she felt better. My grandma felt better. My mom felt horrible. And I think it's important. We know that's like a personal life story, but that happens in the workplace as well. And that's why today we're breaking down why that happens and why you get chosen as the emotional sponge, and how leaders can stop burning out from carrying everyone else's emotional weight.
Yeah, that's really good. And Kristin, this is another great leadership tip that people need to think about. If someone's bragging about themselves to you, they look up to you. They want to impress you. I had someone the other day that was like, this person keeps bragging. I said, but think of it this way. They see you as the alpha. You're the leader. They may not admit that, but you are. That's why they're bragging. They want to impress you. The second thing is, if they dump on you emotionally, they usually trust you. There's something about you that they want to do that. I've talked to people, and I'm sure you have, Chris, and they go, why do people always want to tell me their whole life story? But that's a gift. And obviously you've got qualities that make them trust you. So try to look at the bright side. Now, you're going to have to set boundaries. We'll talk about that. But it is a compliment when people are bragging and trying to impress you. All right, Kristin, let's talk about why people do actually dump. We've talked about the recipient, but let's talk about the dumper. So when people are unloading and they feel heard, they get a dopamine hit. They actually feel good that someone is listening, they're getting someone's attention. So between dopamine, oxytocin, they're getting a good feeling. And that's really why they do it.
Wow. So, it's really interesting, because it makes a lot more sense on why they leave the conversation feeling lighter. I think the key word there is they're talking at you, not talking with you. So there's zero collaboration. There's no back and forth. It is a dump, like you just referenced. And I don't know if you've had a moment where you felt like you were dumped on by someone. I'm sure it's happened when you were in leadership.
There were plenty of times, but I decided to do a different story. Kristin, I rode to work with someone who was always angry at someone. And at first, when you're new in leadership, and by the way, I was not academy director, I was an instructor, but you think, well, this person wants to vent about that other person. I guess I'm in the know. It's cool and all that. But I started realizing when I would get out of the car, even in the mornings, I would feel fatigued. And I have been studying a lot on energy and vibrations, and people carry an energy with them. And that energy, if it isn't aligned, it will exhaust you. So I started realizing that I felt frustrated. I felt uncomfortable. And it would take me an hour in the day to release his vibes, for lack of a better word.
Wow.
So it started
Okay.
taking me down a path of understanding vibrations and also understanding, the brain chemicals between two people. So I ended up, I stopped writing with this person, and there was a little bit of hurtful feelings, but you would not believe I felt 100% better.
Absolutely. I mean, that's so awkward. I'll even just be straightforward on that with my dad. He doesn't do well with like silence, right? He feels like he has to fill the silence, and it drives me crazy. But I'm like, so that actually exhausts me. Like the continuous talking, or if we're driving, like pointing out things that we see. Oh, Walmart. Oh, you know what I mean? I'm like, that tires me out. And so it sounds like there's some science
Kristin,
behind
that's
that.
such a good catch on your part. And that's why people mess up in speeches. We call them word whiskers. That's why they want to do and they don't even understand. I quit even calling it a collective pause. I call it a power pause. You walk into a room, you've got distance between your earlobe and shoulders. You look around confident. You never look like you don't belong. And when you're talking, if someone offends you, you like never yell back. Just wait and just say, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Or is this what you meant to say? And you do the strong eye contact. But yes, a pause can be very powerful, and people are afraid of it.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable for some, for sure. I'm going to skip down here, Ron. I want to talk about, a lot of people, especially you're mentioning you're going to sign up for a conference and you see tons of empathy conferences. And I want to argue that I don't think empathy is a superpower. I mean, there's no off switch. And you hear a lot about empaths. I'm sure you've heard of the type of person that has that personality where they can almost feel. I feel like I have that in me. I can almost feel what somebody is feeling. So there are empaths, and they do a great job at matching in a conversation, matching tone and speed, etc. But, with the point is there's no off switch, and without boundaries, empathy becomes emotional codependency, and dumpers instinctively attach to that. So empaths, beware.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's a good point. That's a good catch on your part. Again, empathy's a powerful force. I want to make sure it's just, it's like other parts of leadership. It has to be used correctly and with good intentions. There are some people, I don't know why, but they love to tell you about so-and-so. Did you hear this guy had cancer? Did you hear this person died? And I can only take so much negativity. It's not that I'm not sympathetic, but and my daughters will tell you, Kristin, this is so funny, but I had a rule from the time they were little girls. We don't talk about death or sickness at the table. I would sit down to eat a delicious meal, and my ex-wife would go, did you hear that so-and-so has cancer? And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
look, I'm concerned about that, but I don't want to talk about it while I'm eating. I don't want to think about it while I'm eating.
No, it's not good for digesting. That's it. They literally say to smile and chew. There's that's a great rule that you had, Ron. And, we were never designed to take in the amount of input that we are taking in, that we are able to because of social media and the internet. And our minds, our bodies are exhausted. And someone like me that does the news every day, right? Like it is exhausting, but I've really learned to compartmentalize. But, going back to like the empathy burnout, that feels different. We've done an episode on job burnout. It feels different because you can still perform, you can still check those boxes, but your emotional gas tank is empty. And that's what you're talking about, Ron. You're exhausted. Your emotional gas tank was empty by the time you got wherever you were going. Because you were being dumped on, or you had this negativity next to you for half an hour plus. And for people that are experiencing this, you're not tired of the tasks per se. You're tired of people.
Yeah, and they say there's a price to leadership, and that is one of the prices. People want to walk in, drop their emotional baggage, and if you don't understand how to regulate, how to set boundaries, your office, your mind is going to be filled with other people's baggage. And
Yeah.
we, like you said, Kristin, we're not designed to take on the problems of the world, but we're designed to be there for maybe someone in the inner circle, and to a certain extent, even, if we had a death at the academy, I certainly called that person, or I went to funerals, I've been to hospitals. There's a place for it. But all of this everyday baggage, I had to set boundaries. And I use the clock to do that. I've got a meeting at 9:30. Can we do this now? Or will you need more time than that? And I found that worked really well.
Yeah. No, I think that's incredibly smart. Even at the homeschool co-op I'm at, I had some students' parents that wanted to talk about something and wanted to do it after school. And for me, I have those boundaries. Like when I'm done, I'm done. So I said, I can't do that, but I can do it during the lunchtime because I'm already on campus, right? So it doesn't impact me to have to stay later. And what would have happened if I would have said, yeah, I would have been irritated that I was staying 40 minutes past when I would have been home already, right? So that's that boundary that we need to be so mindful of. Ron, I'm going to jump down a little bit. And I think I want to say this loudly for every listener. You're not a therapist. You don't have the training. Some may, right? But the majority, you don't have the training. You don't have those boundaries. You don't have a 50-minute session clock, and you don't have a therapist of your own supervising your emotional load like licensed therapists do.
That's exactly right. I have a therapist, but it's me. That's my other personality. No.
Well, that's cost efficient.
No, I charge. So, no, leaders want to be supportive. Support is different from empathy and being a therapist. You can support someone. They're going through a difficult time. Do you need anything? Is there anything we can do to help with your work schedule during the period of time? But you go in and try to be a therapist. And Kristin, so many leaders try to do it. They think they're being respected. In all honesty, leaders who set boundaries are more respected than leaders without boundaries.
Yes, absolutely. I see that all the time on reality TV. They're like, I turned this person around and, and then they relapsed and it's like, that is exhausting. And not everybody is meant to do that. And it's not always, to your point, Ron, the respect can come from those boundaries a lot more than it comes from constantly allowing people to dump on you. That mystique is important. Therapists guide you through processing. I think if we think about it this way, dumpers bypass that processing element entirely. They're dumping the emotional trash bag and walking away clean, leaving you to hold the mess. Think about that. I think that's a good
Kristin,
visual.
I say this all the time. They don't want an answer or a solution. They want your attention.
1,000%.
That's all they want. And because when you throw out something that they have to do that's difficult, most of these people will ignore that. They just want to be heard. And you got to decide how much you want to hear. And again, set boundaries.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, Ron, I would regularly, when someone comes to you, and I'm like, yeah, let's give some advice. I love it. I have an opinion about everything, right? But the minute you suggest a solution and you hear them just kind of, yeah. And then they keep dumping. I'm done. I am done.
Yes.
And because I am not wasting my time. I, at that point, know that they don't want, to your point, they don't want my input, my advice, my feedback, my help. They just want to dump on me. And I am a no BS gal. Don't try it on me. I don't enjoy that unless you're a stranger at the gym, and then I feel a little awkward and bad.
Earbuds. Okay, that's word of the day, folks.
Earbuds.
So these people are not malicious, but they are manipulative. So a lot of times they might want your attention. Sometimes they want you to feel sorry for them, hoping it might even help them in the future. Maybe to get them promoted. They think, I'm unloading. I'm letting them know all the problems I have, but I'm surviving. and they're going to look at that. So there's all kinds of motives. So they may not be malicious, but they might be manipulative, and you need to keep that in mind, leaders, as you navigate the world of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about emotional intelligence. That's really the buzzword of the month. I mentioned in the beginning that this is one of the most sought after topics in December of 25. Actual emotional intelligence is also up there. So I want to break down what that actually means real quick here, because people butcher this concept. It has 4 parts. So there's self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and relationship management. And I've been very open, Ron, where I say, look, I'm middle of the road with the IQ, but my EQ is off the charts. Like all of this, I'm very high in, and you are too. My son is really high in this. I can see this. So this is incredibly important. And, nowhere in there does it say be the emotional landfill for every sad person within a 5-mile radius.
No, that's exactly right. And Kristin, as I look at those, we look back and look at mistakes that we've made, and there's certainly been times. And I'm committed that as I age, I don't want to lose this, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm around some older people and they lose their emotional intelligence. It seems like they forget that everybody doesn't need to know about bursitis or whatever it is.
Oh, I know. Goodness gracious.
Also,
yes.
I tell everyone, I was trying to think of a good, I tell everyone, don't be your own avatar. If you're creating something, you can't be the sign of it, because I have certain biases. I have ways I like things, and some people are different.
Yeah.
And so these people that are dumping, they feel like, oh, everybody's like this, or they're going to enjoy hearing this, when in fact it's not.
Yeah.
So you just can't look at your own style and your own personality when you're getting to know someone, and you got to figure out their personality and what is the appropriate time. All those things come into play, and I love those 4 categories of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I do too. Ron, I'm going to jump down to what the empathy trap actually is, breaking it down a little bit here. It's when caring leaders, they get caught in other people's emotional cycles, right? So you become the sounding board, the emotional, the emotional equalizer, the fixer, and suddenly you're carrying emotions that aren't yours.
It's absolutely true. And you could call that moody, but I worked around someone that people would have to sidestep, and they would determine what mood they're in today. And it was really sad to see people so subservient that they're worried about someone's mood and what to say and how to act. And that's not that's a hostile work environment.
Was this a leader that was moody, or?
This was a leader.
Oh,
as a matter of fact,
that's
there's
not
certain
good.
days you knew not to ask to purchase something.
Oh my goodness. No, I used to have a big sign up wherever I worked, wherever I was leading a team, and it said, please be, what was it? Oh, please be mindful of the emotion you bring into this space.
Like
what was
that.
it? What was something like that. Please be mindful of the energy you bring into this space. Because, man, and I've been talking with my son about that too, because he's going through the puberty situation, and it's like, man, you're negative. Knock it off. Like it's cancerous. Negativity is cancerous. Like it will affect your entire team. So yeah, you need to absolutely be aware of it.
Yeah, that's really good. It's almost like you're lifting weights and they keep sliding weights on the end. You don't even realize it.
Oh
Next
my
thing
gosh.
you know, you're completely exhausted. But there are certain jobs, Kristin, just like coaching. I'm getting paid, and it is similar. We say that coaching is mental fitness, therapy is mental health. But we get into childhood programming, and a lot of things come out during coaching. Some shadow training, I mentioned it before, we might talk about it's when your internal feelings don't match your external actions, and it leaves you stressed. It leaves you feeling like an imposter. So there's all that comes into play. So you do have to recognize your role. And there are times some people are therapists, but they create boundaries as well. You don't unload on people when you're a therapist. And I'm very cautious what I share with people when I'm coaching them.
I had a therapist that would tell us, we were in marriage counseling, and our therapist would talk about his wife, and it wasn't positive, and we both left we weren't even concerned about ourselves. We're like, man, his wife sucks. He would tell us, and then I'm like, And then he'd drive away in this like beat up Honda Accord that was like 20 plus years old. I'm like, that's depressing shit right there. Like, anyhow, so yeah, he did not keep his mystique, though I think he could have been a great marriage therapist.
Kristin, I will tell you, that's a great story.
I knew too much.
So this is something, please, if you're still with us, remember framing. Framing is so important because you can take two good people, but one person frames the other as evil, and you won't dislike that other person. And people don't even mean to do it. But keep that in mind. When people are dumping on you emotionally, they might be talking about another person, and they will sway your point of view because they're framing it that person is the antagonist and I'm the good guy here. And once I learned that, and I learned that as a cop, by the way, when I would make calls and you would have a guy who supposedly, now I know it happens, but I'm saying the one I'm telling you about, his wife was talking, he was abusive and all this. There was no marks, no scars, no anything. And this guy seemed to be very even killed. And then, that Friday night, we're working a late night road stop at like 1 o'clock in the morning because he worked third shift. He worked all night, and there she was in the car with another guy. And boy, when I spotted her, I put that flashlight right in her eyes, and I said, "Where do I know you from?" And she was trying to slump down in the seat. So it turns out the guy was telling the truth, but we were ready to, slam him on the ground, take him to jail because we thought maybe he assaulted a female. So I said all that to say, be very careful and understand framing. And here's another emotional thing we've never discussed, Kristin, but Kristin and I are good friends. Probably, even if, let's say I did something wrong and someone is attacking me online, Kristin's going to jump in there and take my side.
Oh, yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
I've got certain friends that'll do that, but you have to be aware that that's why mothers support their children in court when they've done something horrific. We are, it's called the law of proximity. Whoever you get closest to, they sway your opinion and it goes toward them. And you've heard, ride or die, like I'm with you no matter what. And that's something we have to, I'm not saying it won't happen to you, but you got to be a little bit careful. And this is where parents screw up and they think little Johnny cannot make a mistake. He's got angel wings and he bullies someone at school and they go and cuss out the teacher. That's what happens because they're swayed emotionally, the law of proximity.
Right. Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I tell my son every night, because like I said, he's going through it right now, trying to just, emotions are a little uneven. And I say, I have your back for life, but I will always tell you when you're wrong, right? Like, I am very much like, I have you, like, I got you, but I will not give up on you.
Right.
But, right? I'm not going to pretend like everything you're doing is kosher, because it's not. So there's that difference there. Ron, I'm going to skip down to empathy burnout, just so we can give basically the how to fix it, right? We're going to sum it up here, how to fix it, like we do at every episode. We like to leave you walking away with extra tools in your tool belt here. So some solutions, leaders listening right now are probably thinking, okay, I'm exhausted. What do I do? And you touched on this already, Ron. Boundaries. Set up those boundaries. Just like I did. Hey, I'm not going to stay late 40 minutes, but I can do that during my lunch break because I'm already here on campus, right? Those are boundaries. And that's how you have less resentment when you set clear boundaries. You can care deeply for someone and still say, I can't take this on right now. That is okay. You can do that.
Yeah, you got to know your season. If you're going through something, you're not the right person. And you might even say, hey, I'm working through a difficult situation or whatever. I'm gonna refer you over to this person. Or can we take this up at a later time? There's a lot of different ways that you can do mild boundaries. And remember, boundaries are not walls, they're fences. And people can still get to you. It's just you're not bringing them over. I always say this when we do the saboteur. I say the saboteur will show up at your porch. You don't have to open the door and, sit on the couch with them. So know yourself, know your limitations, know your season that you're in, know your circumstances, and navigate from there.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you're saying. Know what your limitations, because if you limit the length of emotional conversations, that's a great way to set boundaries. You talked about this earlier. I have 5 minutes, right? That's a great way to go at it. And leaders get drained because they let emotional spirals go 45 minutes. limit that length, to your point, Ron, is highly suggested.
Yeah, and if you do cut someone, like if you've only got 5 minutes and you do that, then it's perfectly fine to send them a text later and say, hey, I hope you're doing better. Anything that they hear from you, it is encouraging for them. It lets them know you care. Whereas if you never follow up, it's a balance. Leadership is a delicate balance. And by you just following up, it can eliminate any suspicion they had that you ended the meeting quickly by you just following up.
I like that. That's good. And I think we're just going to close it up here, but I think it's important to say you don't have to respond when you have someone like this that dumps on you. And I know, Ron, you're still coming out of that where you had to respond to everything right away, right? But for when you have a dumper, you don't have to respond to their text messages or their phone calls. Even if it's in the workspace, you don't have to respond right away, right? Because that instant access can create this like emotional addiction, and a slightly delayed access can be emotional regulation. What are your thoughts on that, Ron?
No, I just agree with it, everything you said. And we also, if someone is really coming in and they appear to be depressed or they're kind of going below the line, refer them to counseling.
Yeah.
Yes. We had 6 free visits with the government, so I definitely have referred people.
Yes.
Yeah. I started telling them the story.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, no, it's good because that's what the bank has that. I know, like the police department has that, right? So like that, most companies do have that. And as leaders, I'm glad you're bringing that in, because I've been out of the corporate for a few years, so I just forgot. But there is, if you are a leader and you have someone that has a legit issue that you think could benefit from, and they're bringing it to you time and time again, you can definitely, gosh, I forgot what it's called, Ron. I feel like it was like, but basically HR has something that can help you handle it. And it does have to do with those therapy sessions. And then it's also a good cover your ass move too, really, because you don't want someone that's very depressed and then maybe they harm themselves or they harm others and they've been coming to you, dumping on you, and you didn't notate it or escalate it.
Yeah, and I kind of want to end with this. Leaders need to understand you've still got a job to do, and your job title, if it's not therapist, then you do have to finish stuff. It's like, I'm sure it's hard enough to get in the mind frame to get in a good workout. You get someone talking to you and then you cool down, warm up, cool down. All that's difficult. So it hurts your workout. So at some point you do have to think about the mission, and you also have to challenge growth. Leaders challenge growth. And if someone keeps bringing you emotional problems, they're not growing, that means you're doing something wrong as well. You're not coaching them appropriately. Yeah. So make sure that you're seeing improvement. Some person might dump on you and it's a one-time thing and they need you. But if you're seeing patterns, then you've got to set them up to give them opportunities to grow. And if not, then that's where the boundary comes in, or the referral, or whatever it is.
Exactly. And I just want to say, if this episode hit home for anyone listening, please share it with someone who needs it. And this is, as you guys know, the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. We definitely went there today. And people everywhere are dealing with this. For this to be the #1 search in the leadership sector, I had Grok look it up. I had ChatGPT look it up because I wanted what is hot right now. So many people are struggling with this right now. So you can't be alone. So share it out, and who knows, it could really turn someone around.
That's exactly right. Everyone, we so appreciate you. As Kristin said, listen, share, rate, all of these things help us. And we are really we are in that area of getting national sponsorship. A lot of cool things are happening, and we're gearing up. We're going to have a lot of changes in January, good changes, but we'll have some new things happening.
Maybe a fresh set.
Maybe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ron, and thank you for everyone listening.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.